Good evening, Nick family, and welcome to the Queen's Court. Sorry, a little technical difficulty. My name is Stephanie, the host of the Queen's Court. We meet here every Monday, 8 p.m., to break down the storylines as they relate to our New York Knicks. Got a lot to talk about tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because the Knicks season has started. Tomorrow's the first preseason game against Indiana. I'm joined by two of my usual guests. I appreciate them. Tony Crow from our brother channel, Knicks and Bruises, and Josh, aka Uncle Fulio from The Controversy. His show is right here on Nothing But Knicks. We got you covered this season, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you was rocking with us last season, but if you were, you know, with each game, we do a pregame, a post game, and then the next day we do the morning shoot around. After we slept on it, the emotions has, dissipated a little bit. We talk about the Knicks again, and that's Sim Show, the creator of this channel. So he'll give you a bird's eye view of every Knick game. Then weekly, the Queen's Court. That's more eagle eye view. A lot of times during the season, when you're drilling into each game, a lot of times you don't have that opportunity to talk about, just the direction the team is going in. So we'll talk about how the Knicks did that week. We'll talk about how they're doing up to that point in the season. We'll talk a little bit about the Atlantic Division and what else is going on. Have to keep an eye on the competition. And then if there's any controversy during the season, as there always is, Josh is here with his show, The Controversy, to talk about that as well. We got you covered. Also, Gmo from Legion of Knicks, he may join us today. He does a watch along. So you can do Sim pregame, do the watch along on
You look
Gmo's
at
Legion of Knicks channel, come back for the post game, wake up the next day and do the shoot around. We got you covered. I also want to shout out friends of the channel, CT, the Knicks, the streets are buzzing, and Divine with Knicks Real Talk. You get an opportunity support that channel as well. So today we're going to talk about the preseason game. I got some questions about some individual Knick players, so I'm interested in what Tony and Josh has to say. So without further ado, let's bring them in and let's get to it. Fellas, how are you today?
What's going on, Queen? Always a pleasure. All
Appreciate
hail
you.
the Queen.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you guys. How you doing, Tony, Josh?
Yes, thank you and welcome. Thank you for having me back.
well.
Your
I,
blackest time. I'm ready. I'm excited, just like you was excited, man. The season is here. It's here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely can't wait. Definitely can't wait to see these young guys play. Some players we haven't seen before, the new faces, see how everything is going to mesh together. It's going to take some time, but just to see them all in the Knick uniform at the Garden, it's going to be dope. And we definitely can't wait for that. So excited.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Let's talk about let's get right into it. Talk about that first preseason game. We're playing Indiana. Believe we have their roster. If you guys were following the Queen's Court, we went over Indiana as well, more in depth, but we'll talk a little bit more about them tomorrow, tonight, since we matched up against them tomorrow. So, I mean, just in general, first of all, do you think Tibbs is focused on winning tomorrow or winning in any of these preseason games, or he has other objectives?
Well, I with Tibbs, I think he's always trying to win. And I mentioned this on my show, and I know we don't exactly see eye to eye in it, but I really believe that this is going to be the opportunity for the young guys and see who's going to be able to maybe find a niche and earn a spot and then earn minutes and things of that nature. Especially early in the first maybe game or two. I definitely think a guy like Sims is going to get some minutes with Mitch out, so he may even get more of an opportunity than he may have if Mitch was here. Um, but yeah, so that's what I'm looking forward to. But I think the goal is ultimately going to be to win with Tibbs.
Josh?
And And yeah, I mean, listen, the goal is always to win. You want to win every game you play in. You want to win every play. You want to win every possession. But ultimately, I think what the overall goal is for the team in the preseason is to work out their rotation, work out the kinks. Still with the starters, we still got to figure out how the starters are going to mesh well with one another. With the new additions in Evan Fournier and Kemba Walker, and that has to be the priority first and foremost before we get to the second rotational guys and then situational guys. I think come preseason game 3, preseason game 4, that's when their minutes will start to really rise up there so they can fight for those last positions within the rotation. And I think either way, no matter how you look at it, Knicks are just basically working out all the kinks of everything and try to get off to a hot start going into the regular season. So it's going to be fun regardless.
Yeah, well, definitely, definitely. I mean, in terms of what I'm looking for in tomorrow's game, I'm looking to see the rotations. Who's in the rotations? I think it may be kind of hard to tell if there's going to be any difference because I think in the preseason they'll probably play more people than is going to actually be in the rotation. I'm looking to see if there's any changes on offense. And I know Tony, shout out to you who said that the offense is going to be more dynamic if they don't change anything just because of the players we have. And I do agree with that. But I think it'll be much more dynamic if they also run it through Kemba and Fournier as opposed and Randall. So I'm looking to see what does our offense look like and I'm looking to see what our defense looks like. Now, I'm not going to overreact like Josh was saying on Knicks and Bruises if we look terrible defensively. I'm not gonna sound the alarm, um, but that's going to at least give us our starting point on defense. So I'm really looking to see how we look defensively, and I know most of the chat panel may disagree. I'm looking to see how Knox look. I know some of you think it's over for him, and it might be, but I'm still looking to see how he looks. What about you? Welcome, Gmo
Oh,
from Legion of Knicks. Welcome to the
hey,
Queen's Court.
hey,
We
what's
just
up? How you guys?
Hey, we just getting started. So we just basically talking about the first preseason game versus Indiana tomorrow. And basically, do you think Tibbs is going to be focused on winning or not? And what are you looking to see in that first preseason game?
Um, so yeah, I doubt he cares about winning so much. I think because you have so many moving parts, I think it's a lot about fit. And definitely, I mean, typically when you have a so-called ready-made team, you're probably working on vanilla stuff, like say the Bucks. They're probably working on a whole bunch of vanilla stuff in the preseason before. For a team like the Knicks, we have so many new players. You have some rookie guys who can possibly get some minutes this season, given how Mitch and obviously how Kemba look. I think he's gonna see some experiments, and just my personal belief. And he tried to do some of that last season. It just didn't work because we didn't have the players. But I could definitely see Tom Thibodeau experiments a little bit with some of the players. Definitely guys like Evan Fournier, because it really makes no sense to kind of play Evan Fournier like you've done every guard when he's really good at playing off the ball, which I think Tom Thibodeau's trying to slowly expand into. So, I know that other players are working on such and such, but I think like this preseason might be a barometer to tell like how I want to say far, but how ready Tom Thibodeau is in expanding the offense, and not just because he has players who could produce more than what we had last year offensively, but
Mhm.
you can't play the same heavy on ball offense you have for years, right? Like I was reading some article, I think it was like on SB Nation or something like that, and they were talking about this when he was on Chicago,
Mhm.
how like Tom Thibodeau just gets very bogged down with these on ball offenses. He doesn't experiment much. He has his way. He doesn't make adjustments, as everybody knows. So I think this season, he has to do that. I mean, Kemba Walker can't play on the ball as much just because that needs, attrition
Right.
is going to break down. So
Right.
he's going to have to learn how to play more off the ball. RJ Barrett's going to play more on the ball. Fournier's going to play more off the ball. I don't know if Noah is going to be shooting 3-pointers, but if somehow he shot 35% from three, that's a new wrinkle into the offense. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Tom Thibodeau, experimenting tomorrow and throughout the preseason. So yeah.
Yeah. Before Tony and Josh chimes in, I mean, you're bringing up a different point now, and that is, despite having the players now, was he playing the way he was the offense the way it was last season, based totally off of personnel, Or is
I,
that just Tibbs? And no matter what the personnel is this year, it's pretty much going to be the same.
I think a lot of it was personnel because, he did try different things, right? If you go to like the Warriors game, the first Warriors game, he tried Spain pick and roll, and it's like the way they ran it the wrong way. Is just they didn't have the pieces.
Mhm.
He's run horn sets. He runs a lot of pistol action. So, and granted, those things actually do work, but he's tried to run. And I want to say he ran like more 4-out stuff last season, but I just don't know it by heart. But like I think he's tried. But when you have guys like Elfrid Payton who can't shoot on or off the ball, who basically is like the quiet, like he's like the bizarro Darrell Revis. He literally takes away one part of the court if he doesn't have the ball in his hands. How much more can I do? Like RJ Barrett did come along as a catch and shoot player, but your only real dependable 3-point player on paper before IQ had his, so-called whatever, was really Reggie Bullock. So it's like for instance, Tom Thibodeau, if he had the personnel, like a person who didn't have the personnel and tried new things and it didn't work was Steve Clifford. Steve Clifford tried a whole bunch of offensive schemes with the Magic. They didn't have the horses to run, especially after guys got hurt, right? So I think with Tibbs is like, look, I'm trying these things, but it's like I can't run. Like I have Obi getting meaningful minutes. I got a rookie in IQ who I'm heavily dependent upon. Then I have Rose. It's like, let me run the things that I know work. I know Rose can run the pick and roll pistol. I know he can run horns. I know Randall can do that. Let me go with what works versus trying to experiment. And I end up, not in the play-ins or playoffs, whatever. And, we have a team that still needs to develop. So I think Tom Tibbs is like, let me just be as practical as possible and then wait next season or whatever till we actually get, the horses who can do some of these things.
Right. Okay. All right. Good point. Josh, Tony, in terms of what you're looking for in tomorrow's preseason game?
I'll go first.
Oh,
I got it. So for me personally, I've always wanted to see the Knicks push the tempo a little bit more. I want to see them get more possessions, more shots up. Typically, a lot of times the Knicks were last in the NBA in possessions, and I think the season before that they were 29th. The team has just been really, really slow. And we've seen last season, coming up the floor, because of it could be because of Elfrid Payton or just Thibodeau. I don't think it's any coincidence that almost every team Tom Thibodeau has coached, they've been pretty much bottom of the league in possessions. So I want to see the Knicks get more possessions and be able to, put some more points on the board, more attempts, get to the free throw line a little bit more. And that's going to come from the individual players that they have. And I think they have improved with some of the players that they brought in offensively to try to get some more possessions.
So yeah, exactly what Josh said, but I'm gonna just add. I want to see how many more threes they shoot per game.
Right.
You've been hearing about that, from Tibbs and from the team, and I think we've been talking about it since last year. At least I have. When our percentage was pretty good, but the volume was low, and I'm like, we should be shooting more. And I think that's what we're gonna see. But I'm looking forward to the most is seeing the young guys play, and seeing what they can do against other NBA ready guys at NBA competition, and who's gonna find their way into the rotation, who's gonna get that spot that opened up with Vildoza being gone. So that's the most intriguing thing to me. Everything else I think is gonna take care of itself. Randall, I don't think we're gonna see his true growth until regular season games. You know what I mean? Same with RJ. So I'm not really looking for that just yet. In the preseason, but preseason, yeah, I want to see the young guys and who's gonna earn what. And I'm gonna put Kevin Knox in that conversation with them because he's fighting just as much as they are, if not more.
Yeah, I mean, the Indiana Pacers current roster, a few of them are out. I know Levert is out, TJ Warren is out
Edmund
for an
Summers
extended
is
period
out.
of time. And say that again?
The situational guy, Edmund Summers is out.
Sumner is out.
Sumner.
I mean, that brings up another issue in terms of, the offense is that personnel versus Tibbs and transition offense, right? Trying to pick up the pace, trying to get some easy transition baskets. now that we do have the personnel, that's going to be interesting to see as well. How much of that is Tibbs wanting to play just a slow down game that kind of reduces mistakes, and how much of it is personnel. So we will see. Though I'm not. I mean, Kemba can push the ball. I'm just wondering with with his knee situation, and I'm not sure if we're overplaying it. If he's going to really be pushing the ball like that. We'll see. We'll see. I think we have the personnel to do it. It doesn't have to be Kemba, right? Um, let's see. Let's see. I think after the first, I don't know, 5, 10, 15, 20 games, we're going to really know that this is just Tibbs. This is just how he likes to play. I do agree with you, Josh. I've seen that as well with the Bulls and other teams he's on. He tends to like that half court. Yeah, that half court pace. Any thoughts on that, fellas?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I said, well, pretty much. Listen, if you got the dogs to run a half court system, better players, I think that can be beneficial too. It doesn't always have to be about running up and down the floor, pushing the tempo always. But I would like to see that. Try to expand the offense just a little bit more. I doubt it's going to happen, but I think just for the nature of having new personnel, more versatile personnel on offense, that it can definitely help the offense out as well. Less relying on Julius Randle to run isolation all the time. You can run so much more different things with Kemba in there and Evan Fournier. So interested in seeing that for sure.
And to speak on what you're saying, Josh, when you have the players, I don't think it's gonna even boil so much down to coaching. When you got guys that's running, like if you're running down the court and you're open, the ball's probably gonna find you. When you have guys that can find you, you know what I mean? That look. So I think it's gonna kind of be a natural progression. The same thing with the with the upgrade over Bullock. I think it's gonna be a natural progression of you have more options because this guy is able to do more things. You know what I mean? So I think transition is gonna be a lot better than with Bullock on the fast break, with with Fournier on the fast break. Same thing with Kemba finishing at the rim is probably going to be better than with Alfred Payton. But not just finishing at the rim, finding people at the rim. Once you get into the paint and finding the right person, I think that's going to be better. I don't think it's going to be much of an adjustment per se on Tibbs as far as his coaching style. I think that it's going to be a natural progression.
We'll see. Your thoughts on that, Gmo? Do you feel the same like you felt about the offense, that now that he has more players, the offense is going to be a bit different? Do you feel the same way in terms of transition, that now that there are players that can push the ball, that will get more transition baskets?
I mean, I think transition will be a lot better because it's about execution, having the horses who can, actually, look up and make the proper pass and,
Right.
Not pull a Reggie Bullock when he did that crap in the playoffs with the travel. But I'll say this,
Wow.
like Tom Thibodeau just does not play with pace. Like he's an old school, like half court guy. The last time he played with pace was with the Timberwolves. And I think that was when they went like 31-51. And they were like 13th in offense or something like that, 13 or 15. And I think they were like 14th in pace. And he just does not play with pace. The thing about it is that I mean, whichever one you can, wherever execution is best, right? If you're a team that can run and execute, that's fine. If you're a team that plays a half court, and if you think about the best teams, the Suns, these guys do not play with pace. You know what I mean? I think that the lack of pace last season looked bad because, yeah, our offense was pass it to Julius Randle, get him in the post, and he facilitates or attacks, and that was basically it. It was kind of out of necessity. This season, I still don't think we're going to play with pace, but you have guys who can actually execute. When you make the hockey pass and pass it around, Kemba Walker can hit that shot. RJ Barrett can hit that shot. IQ can hit the shot. Derrick Rose can hit the shot. Or attack. They can do different things. They can actually execute. So I don't think we're going to change much regarding pace itself, but I do think transition offense will be it is going to be a lot better coming season. Because Tom Thibodeau kind of hinted at it, like, maybe I might be reading too much into it, but when he said that, it was hard to kind of think about playing Randle and Obi, it was like it was not a diss on Obi, but it's like, I know everybody has this as like their dream to have Obi and Randle run, but Randle's a half court play. He's not running up and down the court. Obi can. So it's like, and I think that he's going to go with what works. That's why I think like Obi and Rose is going to be great coming off the bench. He'll have that as a unit. I'll tell you that he experimented with pace. He did last with Obi have four guards, or not guards, but four guys who kind of guard wings, whatever you call them, and experiment with that. But then have say his closers and then starting line is more traditional half court offense.
Yeah, I think your mic is I don't think the mic or the internet like there's like a lag.
Oh, sorry. Hold up.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, it seems better. Yeah, it seems better now. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a little disappointing because I would like to see a bit more fast break points, but I do get what you say. I mean, the bottom line is you need to be able to execute, you need to be able to be efficient, you need to be able to score. And if you're best doing that, running the ball in transition, do that. If you can do it half court, and we should be better in that sense, given the players we brought in, then do that. I always like to see if you can get us a few quick baskets, and then if not, set up. But knowing Tibbs, he does the stats. He knows, what's best for this particular team. And so, yeah, it may be more of the same.
Can I ask you a question on that real quick? Oh, sorry. My bad.
To Guillermo's point, and kind of what I was trying to say was, we have better players at those things. So a lot of times last year we had those situations but didn't finish. And then a lot of times last year we had those situations and pulled back because we kind of was, players start realizing I'm probably not going to finish this play. Let me pull it back and reset. So I mean, in those two instances alone, I think that's like 4 to 8 points a game that'll change in the transition area. That has nothing to do with Tibbs necessarily implementing something different. It's just the better players will be able to take care of those situations when they occur.
Right. Yeah, good point. You had a question, Chima?
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys, like, because we always talk about we want to play more transition and stuff, and I agree. I think transition in itself has to be better, but is there an offense you guys would like the Knicks to not necessarily mirror, but you wish it would kind of operate as such, like an offense that you guys are kind of envious of, like to say the Knicks could play like this with what we have now? I would love for it to be like such and such team.
Golden State. They just move the ball so well. They're so much more fluid, moving the ball around. Everyone's a passer. Everyone, obviously we don't have shooters like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, obviously, but those guys move so well without the ball. They get open, they create, without having the ball in their hands so well. I wish we can do something like that. Obviously, if the personnel warrants.
Yeah, I thought about that too, but then I hesitated. Do we have the personnel?
Not
Do we
even.
have the personnel?
Because we also forget Draymond too. Draymond is one
Right.
of the most underrated passers and smartest guys regarding facilitating in the NBA. He doesn't get enough credit for it, but I understand what you're saying, Josh, but it's like they have too great of a personnel to even come close to even trying to even.
I disagree, because I think ultimately is what every coach says. It's about playing the game the right way. So if you're playing the game the right way, those are the type of plays that are going to arise. So if you're playing that way, like the result may not be the same. I don't think the question was about the result. It's about how you want. Who would you like them to emulate or play style? So
but also with some success too, because you don't want to be playing like the Warriors and we're losing like 60 games a year, and it's like, oh yeah, we tried. But I meant like, given what we have now, who do you think would be more realistic? Like you say, okay, we could emulate what these guys are doing, and it's not too far fetched.
So you're saying you talking results?
More like mixing results in where it's like, we should emulate this team because we kind of have similar players somewhat.
I mean, not for nothing. I like what we did last year. I think if we stay on that path, the trajectory is up, especially if Randle doesn't necessarily have to make a leap, but if two other players make a leap, You know what I mean? That puts us in a better position. And then with the acquisitions we got, I think that puts us in a better position. Um, so I mean, I don't know. I like the upward trajectory that we've shown. I like that we brought most of the guys back. I like Tibbs. Like I like us to follow in our own footsteps and just keep it going.
Yeah, yeah.
I would. Yeah.
I just want to add to what Tony was saying. Yeah, I really don't have an issue schematically what they did. I like the fact that they did run the Spain pick and roll, and get the two bigs up there, to do the pick and roll, give the guard a two-way go. But we got better guys who can run the pick and roll now. We got Fournier, we got Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker is one of the best pick and roll, when healthy, he's one of the best pick and roll guards in the NBA. So we got a better player to run that, and I think it's going to look a little bit better by having him there instead of someone like Alfred Payton, who can't pretty much do that much on offense. So,
Right.
I mean, that's just me based on what I've seen
Yeah.
from the Knicks offense last season. I mean, obviously, I think that, when it didn't work out early in the shot clock, running those pick and rolls, it had to always rely on Julius Randle being the isolation guy and trying to get that shot off. And most of the time he won. It was successful with that. But I think if we can get those shots off earlier in the clock, with guys who can knock those down, I think that can go a long way for our offense as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to duplicate last year our offense, in the sense that what I saw. Now we did do a little pick and roll. I don't have the percentages. That's GMO's category to break down, like how what is the percentage of time the Knicks played ran a pick and roll versus how many percentage of the time did we run the offense through Randle in the left block. Like it to me, it seemed like it was 75% of the time. And for me,
Go
that's
up.
just not gonna work. Go up. It was always more than that. Okay.
He took 80% of all post-up plays for the Knicks. And we ran the pick and roll 23% of the time, but Randall was he was our offense, essentially.
Correct. And to
Last season.
me, that's just not gonna work. Now I agree with you, Tony. We got more players. So when we do play that way, I want that percentage to go way down. But when we do play that way, yes, we're going to be, more efficient. We're going to be better. We have better players. But I want to see more pick and roll. I want to see more pick and roll with Kemba. I want to see more pick and roll with Fournier, who can run the pick and roll. I want to see Randle involved in the pick and roll, doing more than popping, maybe, rolling, to the basket some. Just I need the offense to be a bit more dynamic where we're initiating it different parts of the floor by different people. I think that makes us harder to guard. And yeah, we could still do the same offense with Randall, but if we can bring it down to like 30%, I'd be happy.
So I have a question about that stat though. Is that just based on the amount of the shots that the Knicks actually took, or is it because I do feel like the Knicks, based on from what I watched last season, that they were trying to run a lot more pick and roll, but they just couldn't be able to score or get good shots up, that they had to rely on Julius Randle late in the shot clock. So is that stat just their whole entire offense, what they ran as far as the plays, the type of plays that they had set, coming down the floor, setting up their half court in the beginning of the shot clock or towards the end of the shot clock?
Yeah, because I'm looking at it just like I'm looking at the transition offense. Like, you know what I mean? With these additions, it's gonna be more successful. So it's gonna be seen more. You know what I mean? We weren't successful in the pick and roll last year. Hence why it wasn't a staple of our offense.
Right. But now that we are,
it was only successful with certain players. Let's say that.
Right. But now we are. So now that we have more players, I'm hoping that we see less of Randall in the corner and more pick and roll. And Sim, shout out to Sim working behind the scenes. Appreciate you. We can play an offensive style similar to the Hawks. I mean, the thing with the Hawks, though, you got to keep in mind, they had Trae Young who could get into the key. And that's when the pick and roll options start. Once you get in, you get past your now everything is open, and you got to have a point guard. Right. You got to have a point guard that can hit the floater, hit the center for the lob, hit the 3-point shooters. Like everything has to be open to you. Do we have those types of players that can beat their guy off the dribble or even off a pick, get in, and every option is open? With the efficiency that Trae Young did it in the playoffs. Do you think we have that guy that we can play the type of offense that
I already know what Tone's gonna say.
Atlanta plays?
No, he's not there yet. He's not physically there yet, but he's on the team, and he's being groomed for it.
Who's that?
Quick. And yep.
I thought you were gonna say Kemba. I thought you were gonna say healthy Kemba.
Kemba, yeah, but he don't have the range that Quickly has, and I'm only making that in the comparison of a Trey Young. So like trying to run that Atlanta offense, Quick would be the guy put in that position, and I think they're grooming him for that. I don't know if he's going to be there this year, but I could definitely see him working towards that. But don't sleep on what we see between him and Obi in the pick and roll this year, as well. Right. With their chemistry and as much as they've been working together all summer, I think that's another aspect that we're gonna see a lot more of, and that's gonna be deadly with Quick's range, with his versatility, and then with Obi kind of finding his own niche and finding himself as an NBA player. Look out for that. So I can see that. I just don't know if it's going to be this year.
But you know who messes up the pick and roll, or like, because you could say, yeah, I think they are. I agree with you. I think they are trying to groom Quickly to be like this more improved facilitating point guard or guard, period. Kemba obviously is another one who operates the pick and roll excellently. But the thing with Kemba, though, because of the knee, one thing he does great is that he likes to draw contact. Like he has that stutter step and the quickness, and he loves to draw contact. So it's just like you're gambling with it, right? But the person who really messes up, and I'm not blaming on him, is Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson not being there messes up everything for us regarding the pick and roll, because like Randle just doesn't like rolling to the basket. It is at least last year he doesn't like it. Noswell has brick hands, right? But Mitchell Robinson cleans up so many errant. Just throw it up to freaking Louisiana. He's just, you know what I mean? So him not being there hurts us so much. So whoever runs the pick and roll, if I know that threat behind me, or not behind, but rolling to the basket is not that great of a threat, I could be a little bit more aggressive on Kemba, who might not be, as aggressive, off the screen, attacking the basket, not necessarily shooting it. You know what I mean? Mitchell Robinson, that's why I wish he was healthy. Because like if you watch his game, like he's one of the best at the pick and roll period as a roll man, right? And like he provides us such a crazy target that we finally have point guards who can operate the pick and roll and shoot. Like Payton was running the pick and roll, but you knew he wasn't going to shoot, so you just play back off him, right? And just hope for the best. You could block Mitch or whatever. And to some extent, it did work, but Mitch is still that good. He'll just dunk whatever, if it's up in the air and he's closer. But now we have the people to run it, and Mitchell Robinson's out, so.
Yeah, because you're right. I think what made Trey Young so deadly was what he could do, right? He could pass, and somebody in the chat is questioning whether or not Quick is as good a passer as, as Trey Young. But what made him dangerous was not just what he could do, but what was available to him, right? Capella, you had to, am I going to step up and try to guard this floater that I think is coming? Or if I do that, it's not Noel with the 50-50 hands, right? This is Capella who's going to be able to catch. And, and if I rotate down, if I'm on the wing and I kind of rotate down to Capella, those wings can shoot. So I think we have that in terms of wings that can shoot. I think we got guards who can get in the lane. But you're right, Gmo, you're right. Without with 50-50 back there and not having Mitch back there, that does, you're right. This is a sure thing, Kemba. I'm going to play him. I'm going to let that go because I know 50% of the time he in self-check, that's not going to work out, on his own. So that is a very good point, actually.
Can I say one thing? Now, this is awful. These are some awful takes I'm about to make. Well, this one's not awful. I think my son Deuce McBride is going to eat somewhere just because Luka Mendoza's going. Kemba, they have to control for him. Now, I don't think it's going to happen, but obviously Mitch is not ready. I don't think he's going to be ready for the season. This guy, they're talking about light jogs now, which is not good. He hasn't been playing contact basketball since, and I'm not putting anything. Obviously, his own body has to heal. Now, if Jericho Sims, now I still think he's on a G League. He has a 2-way contract. I don't want to get convinced, but do you think that Jericho Sims, if he gave you an Emmanuel quickly like preseason, like how quickly he did last season, impressing everybody, and it was more of a we needed actual talent last season, so it stood out. But if Jericho Sims comes in and he's able to do at least replicate, say 75% of what he did in the summer league, and I mean, he did a better job of controlling the boards, and he could run that pick and roll for us.
Right.
Not say he's going to start, but do you see him getting valuable minutes this season while Mitch Robinson continues to rest? Or not rest, sorry, heal up.
Absolutely, no question. I think I've always been high on Jericho Sims. That's always been my dude.
Yeah.
Like I said, that dude eats corn. He is straight up corn fed. It's hard to move him out the way. And I feel like he comes into the NBA, at least defensively, and where he, you know, on the defensive side of the ball, a lot more polished than Mitchell Robinson when he came out. You know what I'm saying? So I really like Jericho Sims a lot. And I don't know if he's going to get any playing time over Nerlens Noel. I doubt that's going to happen. They just pay Nerlens Noel the money. But Jericho Sims definitely can get a lot of time at that backup center spot behind Nerlens Noel while Mitchell Robinson's out, you know, getting healthy and, you know, whatever the case may be. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we also
that's what I would like to see. But you know how Tibbs and Taj is joined.
But see, I don't like Tibbs. All right, Tibbs is old school. It's like I feel like if you're about your work, if you're not posting stupid things on IG, which Sims has to stop doing those stupid TikTok videos, but whatever. If you're serious about your work and your craft and you're in the gym like a gym rat, like IQ was like the teacher's pet. And I'm not saying he was doing that purposely to impress Tibbs, but that's his game. It's like I'm gonna be in the gym 24/7 and then some. And for a guy in Jericho Sims who actually has a hook shot, he shot a 3-point shot down the summer league. If he was able to impress Tibbs and execute the basics, like footwork, knowing where to be on certain plays, like, and he was aware, I feel like Tom Thibodeau would be like, all right, that's a man after my eye. He's gonna get some minutes somewhere.
Yeah,
because people have this misnomer that Tibbs doesn't like to play rookies. He just doesn't like playing young players where it's like they just don't get they don't get certain things. I know you brought up a great point a few episodes several episodes ago about Obi, right? Saying he got minutes and stuff, but say what you want. When Obi was in the lineup, off the bench, coming off the bench, he was making some dumb mistakes, and Tibbs was yanking him out of there.
Right.
But then he started to be a lot better, especially defensively, knowing where he's supposed to be, given the fact that he's not great laterally, but it's all right, anticipation, know where I'm supposed to be. He did a way better job, and I feel like that afforded him more minutes, more than I know what you're saying about the front office running the play and stuff. So if Sims could do that, and you're talking about on the bench where we really don't have Taj is a nice play, I understand. But if Nerlens Noel is starting, is Taj going to be your starting 5 off the bench?
Your backup 5, yep.
Yeah.
I definitely could see Sims jumping Taj in the rotation. And the funny thing is those two centers, Taj or those two guys, they're gonna be the best guys that even set in the pick in general. Like that's one of the problems our offense had with the pick and roll is our bigs don't know how to even set a proper pick or wait for, you know what I mean? Like
right.
So I think that's one thing that I've noticed about Jericho. Solid. He probably sets one of the best picks like of a young guy just coming into the league already. So I think that'll get him, you know, that's an advantage for him. But I definitely see him. He could do like Mitch did, you know, 2nd round pick, and literally surprise low expectations and come in and surprise and you know, get in the rotation. And then the thing with Taj is he's such a true vet. It's not going to be a problem. Like even last year, he got brought in and played because of necessity more than because he was a Tibbs guy. It helped that he's a Tibbs guy because he knows I could go to him, but he knows he could go to him at any point. Game 15, you know what I mean? Game 35, you know what I mean? 5 minutes left.
Right.
Like start, you know what I mean? Start. He's gonna be ready. So in that aspect, I think Sims might get that nod. But he's gonna have to shout in this opportunity. These 4 games right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if he balls out like Quickly did and fills a need, right? Because we needed shooters. I think that was part of it too. Right? We need a shooter. Look at this kid. Look how he's shooting. He's playing hard. He practices. He works on his game. I think that endeared him to Thibodeau. So the same thing with Sims. I think if he comes out and he plays really well, absolutely. Because you're right. People say Tibbs doesn't like to play rookies. I don't think that's true. I think in Minnesota, I mentioned this last week, there was a rookie with a O'Keefe. I forget his name, but he played. He played. So I do think if you're a rookie and you endear yourself to him by your work ethic, by your defense, by something, you definitely will get a shot. And I think that Sims will get that shot. I think, and if he plays like that in the preseason, yeah, I think he will get the shot. Yeah, he may get that 12th that last spot. Yeah, and I would be happy. I would be happy. I know Josh, you was on him from the beginning, but yeah, I like him. I really do.
Yeah, I think Taj Gibson. I think his role on this current team. If everything works out, if everything plays out the way we would like, I think his role will just be that guy that's just there in the locker room. For that
Player
locker room
coach.
presence. Yeah, kind of like that player coach to be able to translate whatever the young guys don't understand from Thibodeau, so the young guys can be able to understand it better. Kind of play that role, motivation off the bench, kind of like a Udonis Haslam kind of type of player. So.
But I think he could be a player coach, and not obviously he's not coaching, but when we look at guys like now, we're not going to get this guy back, obviously, but DJ, I thought Mitchell Robinson, and statistically he put up some of his best defensive numbers when DJ was there. Now, Taj Gibson, if you look at it last year, he was probably our best non-ball handling player whenever he ran the triangle. When Randle was out, he was our best, probably one of our best screeners. I mean, and it's things like that. We complain all the time that some of these young kids come in. I would love for Taj to just play that role. I understand the rah stuff, but I think he could be even more than that. Like, I don't know, what he signed a 2-year deal or something like that for $5 million?
2 years, 10
2 year, whatever like that. But him going there and coaching these guys up, which I'm pretty sure Udonis Haslam has done as well too. I think that Taj should do that. And I mean, Noswell is older. I mean, it is what it is. But a guy like Sims and even Obi, when you talk about his footwork, especially coming off screens and stuff, Obi's still really raw. I think Taj could definitely take on that role for himself.
Yeah, definitely. Just before we move on, I just want to talk a little bit about that last roster spot now that Vildoza is out. So Sims is an option. Do you think he gets it over Bacon, or do you think there's someone else out there? Because Bacon is not Bacon. Sims is two-way. He could still stay on a two-way and still play, right? And they could they could still sign somebody else.
Right, and I think that's the reason why he won't be able to get that last spot. It'll be smart if the Knicks actually use him as a two-way player and then sign someone else, or maybe Bacon shows up or someone else shows up to take that spot. I don't think the Knicks are going to have him there, but he'll be around the team during the season. That's for sure.
Right.
I still think it's 50-50 because you may see the potential in having him as a guaranteed contract and opening up the two-way with somebody that you like, but you not that not that sure on per se. Like MJ Walker, you know what I mean? Like, so guys that haven't established themselves in the league, they may have to take the two-way. And if he's producing enough, yeah.
But couldn't you just sign
him up now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, Coach. I'm sorry about that.
I'm good.
I was going to ask you, couldn't you just put MJ Walker? Because I don't think MJ Walker is going to be a contributor on the roster this season. But I like his shooting, and that's a guy I think like you stash him in the G League, and like what I mean, like you don't.
That's what I'm saying.
But no, but like if you gave somebody a two-way contract, right? You're probably hoping it's like we could have this guy. Like we feel certain, or not certain, but there's a strong chance that this guy is going to move up. Like he could get viable minutes with the team, whether it's off the bench, whatever. Versus I'm gonna just stash this guy in the G League. Period. Like, couldn't they just do that with MJ Walker? Because I don't think MJ Walker's gonna be a contributor. I think maybe next year you might find something. But so like, wouldn't you just keep Jericho on that two-way instead of give him the guaranteed?
I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's multiple it's multiple ways they can do it. If Jericho Sims comes out in the preseason and balls out, I think the Knicks are going to sign him to a guaranteed contract and use him for that last roster spot. If he doesn't, if he's kind of like, they can keep him as a two-way player, go out and sign someone else to fill up the last roster spot, or maybe someone else. So the Knicks have options there.
Right.
It can go either way. To be honest,
But
we're all
even
talking
on a
about the same thing.
two-way, he still plays. How many games is he allowed to
I think
play?
40. I think it's like 40 or
40.
something like that. So
I mean,
either
I
way, it
guess
just really
that'll
depends
let
on
us
the
know
Knicks do it.
what they think about give us some inkling about what they're thinking about Mitch's recovery. Right? If they
Yeah.
sign him 40 games, you figure if somebody's just going to be out a little bit, 40 games is enough. Why do we have to sign you to a guarantee? That's enough to fill that spot. If they do, maybe that's an inkling into what they're thinking about Mitch in terms of his availability.
But also
for the
remember,
season.
the earlier you use those 40 games, the less, you know what I mean? That time runs out. You can't
Yeah.
use them. You know what I mean? So a lot of teams don't like to necessarily start a guy off in the beginning of the season using those games up. So, you know what I mean? That's another perspective of what they may be thinking.
Yeah.
Mitch.
All right. So the season is starting, and I got some questions about a few of these players. I'm trying to think, should I start with the heavy hitter? All right, let's start. Let's start with Randle. This is the question I have about Randle coming into this season. A lot of people say they don't see him as a number one on a championship team. So my question to you guys is, what would he need to show you this season that would make you think he could be a number one on a championship team? Or do you feel like there's nothing he can do in one season to make you think he could be a number one on a championship team?
Tone, you got it.
There's absolutely nothing he can do that is going to make me say he's the best option on a championship team in the regular season.
So are you saying you would need to see him in the playoffs, or you don't think,
I don't
period?
care. No, that's what I'm saying. There's nothing he can do in the regular season that will make me say that. It has to happen in the playoffs. It has to happen in the playoffs. If he gives,
I'm including the playoffs. When I say this year, I'm including the playoffs.
Well, if he gives the same performance that he gave last year in the playoffs, then he has that argument. At the very least, I could argue it for him. But until and then obviously it's gonna the argument can never be won until it's done. You know what I mean? So I don't care if he gets to the Eastern Conference Finals. The naysayer is gonna say he didn't win. If he gets to the finals and doesn't, you know what I mean? But for him to reach that next level, he has to perform at his best in the playoffs. And until then, I think it's really nothing. It don't matter how good everything is leading up to that. That's where they're born at, the superstars.
Right. Anybody else want to take a crack at it?
I think superstars are born, but with Randle, there's any improvement is going to be mental, right? How many games you saw last? Now Randle was hot last season, right, for the most part. But again, I could go back to the Celtics game where I'm not saying it because RJ is one of my favorite players, but RJ was 6 for 6 from outside, and Randle was like 7 for 20 something, and Randle just kept chucking it, and it was like he wasn't playing the game within the game, right? When you look at the greats, even I'm gonna say greats, when you look at the elite players, I'm using Jokic, I guess you could call Jokic whatever, but the way they operate. The intellect, getting themselves in certain spots, putting plays in certain spots. I've seen Jimmy Butler, and no one can sit here and say that when Jimmy Butler first got an NBA, he was going to be what he is today. I've seen games with Jimmy Butler in the Heat where literally, I remember a game they played against the 76ers. I think Jimmy Butler maybe had like 6 points for the whole game. And all he was doing was just facilitating, getting guys in a certain position. And at the end of the game, he closed it out against the 76ers. They won by like 4 or 5 or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. I need to see even when he played against us, I think like 2 years ago, he only had 9 points in one game, and they mollywopped us. And Jimmy Butler was still probably their best player because he was facilitating, knowing where our weak spot was. Okay, this guy has 3 fouls, he has 4 fouls. Dump it to such and such in the post. Let him operate. Like, I need to see that decision making by Randle versus I'm a bully ball my way into everything. That just doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like, I need to see him also take the adjustments himself to say, hey, Tibbs, I don't know what the hell you're doing right now. You keep putting him at the top of the key, and I see the help defender Capella. Put my butt in the low post so I can expose a double team and then kick it out to the open guy. I need to see something like that by Randle to convince me that he can take that next step, because all the top stars outside of let me not say, because I want to get in trouble if I say this player. All the top stars in the NBA have a high level of intellect. Yeah, I mean, and the Knicks just showed like we don't have that player yet. So it's up to Randle. If Randle could take that next step, God bless. But I'm not saying he's that on a championship team until I see him take that next. Like, he could have a season next year where he has less points, maybe probably the same amount of assists, maybe possibly more, and be a more impactful player just by his decision making. And given the fact that we have players on this team, like, I shouldn't have to see games where if Fournier has 20 in the first half, he shouldn't only have 2 more shots in the second half, because Randle wants to shoot his way into the game when Randle's not doing too good. We can't see those type of games. I mean, so
I think part of that is also a learning curve.
Can I also say in the chat, giving Randle the business, he's not that play. He's not. But the question is, so are you saying because he's not, he will never be? So the question is, do you think he can be that, and what would it take? And it's fine if you don't think he would ever become that. That's fine. Josh.
I absolutely believe Randle can become that. Absolutely, no question. I think, and I totally agree with I agree with both of y'all were saying. I totally think that it's going to have to happen in the playoffs. That's when we actually have to see it. People were saying that about Giannis 2 years ago, that he can't be the number one. He needs to play with someone else to be the number one, and he turned out to be the number one. And he shocked everybody up putting up 50 points in the game 7 of a finals. So I think right now it's very easy to say that Julius Randle can't do something, or because we haven't seen it yet. Quite frankly, that's just what it's about. But I believe he definitely has that potential. He is an MVP caliber player. Based on last season, he is that MVP caliber player. So as long as the Knicks put the right pieces around him, which I think they have, I think Julius Randle can take that next step into that next echelon of his career to turn up. 2 seasons ago, no one was even thinking this about Julius Randle. Everyone said that Julius Randle was this type of player, that type of player, and then he got smarter, improved on his body, did that, a lot of those little things in practice. First guy in, last guy out, and he basically, I don't want to say turned his career around, but he took his game to the next level. So the potential is definitely there. We just have to see it in the playoffs. And I don't think I don't know if anyone is limiting him, but I definitely think the potential is definitely there. You can't write him off right now.
Can I say one thing real quick?
Yeah.
This is gonna get me in trouble, and this is what I didn't want to say. Giannis is a very good player. He's a talent. I think Giannis was able to be Giannis because of what they did around him. Like, they got that boy a bunch of shooters, and they got him one of the more underrated point guards in the league, in Jrue Holiday, who went off. Jrue Holiday shot 50% from the field last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like Giannis. Don't get me wrong; he's an absolute beast. But I feel like his success this season was a team thing versus just him. He had some great games, especially in the finals.
Is he the best person on that team?
Yes,
and that's what
no
the question
about it.
That's what the question was.
He okay. So that's not fair. It's like
it is fair.
It's like all right. It's like he's the king, but like Jrue Holiday and those snipers, like that's a ridiculous army they put around him.
But everybody,
and you make that argument with the clear-cut best player in the league. You can make the argument about. With LeBron, you can make that argument about what he needs people around him.
All right. So see, this is why you can't say Jordan. Sim is killing me now. I never said that Giannis is a beast. I love watching. I'm just saying, like, when I watched that team last year, and of course you always need talent. No one wins it by themselves. I'm just saying, like how Josh was saying with Ren. I know what he's trying to say, but it's like if they put a whole bunch of shooters and like a top-notch point guard around Randle might look like an absolute beast. Because you're putting, like, how they play Giannis was, all right, I have Chris Middleton, I have Jrue, I have Pat Connaughton, I have even Brent Forbes. I have all these shooters around him that opens up the floor for him. Like, they really, if you look at it, like, scheme-wise, they didn't do that much different from previous years. They just had the whole, like, the proper, and then Jrue Holiday, who had a stupid year last year. And then Giannis was able to be, like, Giannis is like, he's like Bane, right? Bane was an absolute beast in the movie, right?
Mhm.
But Talia was like the one who kind of set up everything. You know what I mean? So yes, Bane is the strongest dude, whatever, but I feel like you needed somebody to truly open that up versus, okay, let me just put a few pieces here and there and championship team like LeBron. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that's why I want to get in trouble
But-
with Giannis. I know
but
people
the-
gonna kill
but
No,
me,
you're
but
not getting in
the
trouble.
que-
I'll
the
be honest, but I
question-
will.
The question with Randall is, can it be done? And I think the answer is absolutely. And let's not discredit Randall's work ethic. Let's not discredit how he improves, how he learns off of experience. Let's also not because I haven't heard anybody really talk about the leaps and bounds he's jumped defensively last year. Like so the guy wants to be, if not the best in the league, he wants to be the best he can be. And you know what I mean? I think he can be the
All
best
those
guy
intangibles, all those.
on a championship team.
Mhm.
Sorry, Steph. All those intangibles that Tone just mentioned are the dynamics of every championship team that you'll see. They step it up defensively. They work harder than everybody else. That's all championship pedigree. And the question was number one guy on a championship team. That was the question. So I totally agree with Tony.
Well, the question is, what would you need to see to make you believe he can be that? I don't think he's that yet, but I think he can be that. But for me, what I would need to like, he played lights out last season, right? So for me to be a number one on a championship team, that needs to be his baseline. Like this is what you expect from him every single year, and this is what I know about number ones. The team keys on you, they know you the number one, and it means nothing because you still going to get yours. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to have a bad game. You're not going to have a bad shooting night, right? But those elite players, they still find a way to impact winning. Maybe they passing more that game. Maybe they're rebounding more that game. Maybe they're doing different things. But to be a number one on a championship team, you have to be able to take all the smoke, all the heat, all the adjustments, and still come up big. And he's just not there yet. Now, if he becomes a perennial all-star, perennial all NBA player, teams are keying on him game in and game out, like last season during the regular season, and he still is effective and he's doing that even in the playoffs, then I would say yes. But I
So
don't
it
think
comes
he's
down to
there yet.
playoffs then. It comes down to what happens in the playoffs.
It comes down to both him duplicating what he did last year so that we know that that wasn't a fluke, right? That this is his baseline. This is just how he plays. He plays lights out, right? And then in the playoffs, taking it up a notch and being able to do that year after year. Like that's your baseline. That's just what you do. Then I would say yes.
What if his adjustment doesn't necessarily give him 25 points a game? What if his adjustment gives him 20 points a game? But what he has to do to continue to be like the best player on the team is bring them rebounds up to like 13 or something, or you know what I mean? The assists go to like 8 or even 7, but the turnovers drop from 3 to 1 or 1.5. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of ways that I think
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it. I
he can
mean,
continue to be the best player
mhm.
on the team and not necessarily be the leading scorer or you know I just think there's a
I mean,
ton of ways.
you right, but when you look at the best players on in this league, most of them are the leading scorers on their team.
Is
that
is
but
it by necessity or is it just that's what they do? Because I think you know what I mean, different guys are different, and the best asset that he could obtain is adaptability, to adapt to the game. So the game may not call for him, you know, to drop 25.
Oh no,
You know
absolutely.
what I mean?
No, absolutely, I agree. But at the end of the season, when you rounding up all of those numbers, I don't really see a best player on the team being a third leading scorer and a fourth leading rebounder, or I mean, somebody like Butler, maybe, because he's that like, do it all type player. But most of those cats who are elite and the best player on their team, usually they're up there statistically, and from game to game, they will adjust their game depending on what players need, what the game is calling for.
Game to game like game.
It's all mental. It's mental. It's mental with Randall. Like
And I agree
like you
with
said,
that.
Tony. Like he may have to compromise his game to make guys around. And honest to God, even amongst the great players, there are really only a few players who can do that. Where it's like I
Mhm.
know, all right, like Chris Paul, one of my favorite players. Like this guy, like I remember growing up watching him, and there were games he could score 40, 50 easily. And it
Right.
was not. I'm gonna get it to the right guy. And obviously, he's a point guard, so it's a little bit
Right.
different. But guys
Right.
like Jimmy Butler, so I have to see it from Randall too. And also the emotional kind of he has to control his emotions. I know we talk about. I know Queen was blah blah blah, and I think it was like after Game 5. Then I heard you guys talking about, oh yeah, he has to control himself, all that stuff. But Julius Randle, he has to like that whole series. The Hawks was almost like a troll series. Like you could see it. All you guys play basketball. You know when you're playing against a guy, he's being dirty on purpose. He's trying to get in your head. And Julius Randle did not rise to the occasion. Now, granted, we were probably going to lose regardless. But I got to see that from Julius Randle, where it's like, I know what you're doing. I know why you have freaking Solomon Hill out here playing. I know what you want to do. You want to hurt one of us. I know Bogdan in the first game, he stuck out his foot on purpose to trip Bullock or something.
Mhm.
I know what you're trying to do. I'm above that. Because and I know Derrick Rose, they said, oh, Derrick Rose was in mad. But when Derrick Rose was looking, when they caught him as Julius Randle was walking back, I was like, oh my God. It's like Derrick Rose was like a disappointed father. Like, yo, are you guys stupid? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
everything right now, and people saying we're comparing Giannis. No. We're not comparing Giannis and Randall one for one. They were making an example of best
Right.
player in the best team and kind of use it as a barometer. But no,
Right.
Giannis is a freak, literally. Like you can't teach that to Randall. So stop
Right.
thinking that, guys. But Randall, to me, if you can make guys around him better, and I'm seeing everybody's points go up, RJ's, Fournier's, blah blah, it go up, and say I don't say his usage, but say his usage dipped around 27 or something like that. Like then I'll be okay. Then I could trust Randall to be maybe not the best player scoring wise, but say the most impactful player, like
Mhm.
a baby Jokic. I mean, and granted, Jokic this season
Mhm.
because Jamal Murray was out was a high score,
Right.
but
Right.
I need to see that from Randall where he's a century and the offense kind of like not necessarily revolves around his scoring, whatever, but like he's a plus multiplier to everybody on the court at any given moment.
And
Let me read this super chat first. Mr. Durante, appreciate you. I think Randall can do some things to make us think he can be the number one option on a team that is a contender. Make the first team all NBA, and he would have to be in the top 5 or even top 4, 3 MVP voting.
I thought
I
he
mean,
was.
exactly.
yeah. I mean, this was the MVP finalist. Curry, Embiid, York. Was Julius fourth? I don't think Julius was fourth. But
I'm
this is
pretty
his. He was four,
If he
Six.
wasn't fourth,
I
he
think it
was
was like
sixth.
6. I think it was like
Was
6
it
or something.
six?
six.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was like 6.
I
'Cause
mean,
I thought it was top 5.
yeah.
He was
This is his numbers. I mean, his numbers. I mean, you look, but I think this is what Gmo was talking about because when you look at his numbers compared to Jokic, they not far off. Um, but Julius was just as impactful for his team than Jokic was for his. But you can look at Jokic though and just tell he's playing the game on another level.
it's
But
He's
you,
playing
you,
he's playing the
but you,
game
but you
on
know
the
what?
another
best center in the
level, even
league.
though statistically is close.
Jokic been there before. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like that's one
yeah,
thing you got to give Julius credit for.
yeah.
He falls and then he gets back and gets better. You know what I mean? Like you look at that first year with him in the New York uniform, and,
Mhm.
and what he endured, and then came back and shut everybody up. I
Mhm.
expect the same type of comeback from him again. You know what I mean? Like bad playoff performance, I'm gonna make you forget about it though the regular season, and then when the postseason comes, it's time to show and prove. But
But
he's
see,
he's he's improved every year of it. Like trajectory, man, is always going up with him. You can't
so
you can't take that
what do
away.
you okay? So tell me, what do you make of like because there were rumors that and I had this whole conspiracy. Sim said it was not true, but whatever. I'm not gonna listen to Sim on that one. I had a conspiracy that. All right, let me not say conspiracy, but I think that there were rumors that Julius Randle was asking for adjustments in the game that he wanted to be put lower in the lower box again, lower block, excuse me, against the Hawks, so he could try to draw out Capella a lot earlier. And Tibbs was like, nah. So if Julius Randle has another clunker next season, how much of that is on Julius Randle and how much is that on a guy like Tom Thibodeau who just does not make adjustments? Remember, freaking LeBron James gets put on Derrick Rose. They made no adjustments, and the Bulls lost. They're probably gonna lose anyway. But Tibbs is not. He like how culpable is he in like our failures if we go into the playoffs next season? Say we play the Hawks again, we lose in the first round, basically mostly the same. But I know we have new players, but say Julius Randle just doesn't have a good series again because Tom Thibodeau, they do the same thing and Tom Thibodeau doesn't adjust. How much is that is on Julius Randle not being a good player or Tibbs not being Randle not being a good player?
If we're healthy, it's probably more on Tibbs at that point. Because I think a healthy, like you said, a healthy Mitch changes things, especially against Atlanta. And I think our guard play and two guard play changes things against Atlanta for the simple fact that they can do more with the ball. Like part of the problem with Randall was even when he got the pass out, guys were limited in what they could do in response. So you know what I mean? So it kind of looked even worse. But I got both these
Go
guys.
ahead, Josh.
Real quick. So Tony, I agree with you. I think it is on Tibbs, but not for exactly for the reason that you mentioned. I think for the simple fact that he's the coach, it's easier to blame a coach or perhaps fire a coach, particularly after you just pay someone a long-term contract, a player a long-term contract. I believe. And you know, I don't want to say this is a conspiracy, but I believe Julius Randle has more of the front office's ear than Tom Thibodeau does. I think ultimately that's what that's just me. I mean, the past couple incidents that we've heard about, you know, the Reggie Bullock thing, and even the other thing we were talking about in regards to the front office doing something other than what Tibbs wanted. I think they have Julius Randle has their ear more than Tom Thibodeau. I'm just being honest. And it comes down to they can easily get rid of Tom Thibodeau, and they have to hold on to Julius Randle. It's harder to move his contract.
What was the Bullock thing you were referring to?
The Bullock thing. Tom Thibodeau wanted to hold on to Bullock rather than Alec Burks, and the front office wanted to go in a different direction.
Oh,
whether it be fair, whether it be fair, a good move, not the right move. I thought that you know showed a little bit of, for me, that's a little bit concerning because typically you want your triad to be on the same page, but it seems that those guys were thinking different things.
Why would you think that had Julius Randle's ear in that sense?
No.
Oh no. Go ahead.
No. I was just say to your point. He's trying to say that like Julius Randle has more leverage, and because that they didn't give Tom Thibodeau Bullock or try to make an effort to resign, that he thinks that there's less leverage, that Tibbs has less leverage. But I'll say on the contrary, they signed Derrick Rose last season. Granted, he's a second round, whatever. And also the guys that Tom Thibodeau the team drafted, right? Quentin Grimes is more of a Thibodeau type of guy than what I would think they'll go after, which was Obi the first year.
And McBride as well.
McBride is a Tibbs type of guy too. You can even argue Sims is a I mean, Sims was drafted way low, but you know, so it might be back and forth. I don't disagree, but I don't think that Tom Thibodeau is kind of like say a Mike Shanahan, you know, in that RG3 situation where like the owner's yeah, we listen to RG3 now. I think he still has some pull, but I agree. I can see it in some bit. It's not as if Reggie Bullock was like, for this example, you could tell when Tom Thibodeau was in Chicago, they wanted to re-sign Luol Deng, and they didn't. I think it was like 2013. And you could tell, okay, now the team is probably trying to move away a little bit from Tom Thibodeau versus Bullock is like, you know, I'm not dissing him. It's just Bullock.
Yep. And if the Knicks win, all that stuff goes away anyway. None of that stuff matters.
All it goes away.
Yeah,
definitely. And Randle seems like he might have wanted Bullock back too. That's why I got confused by your comment. I mean, he always.
No. That was just another example. We was just using as an example.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me just read this second super chat. Mr. Durante, appreciate you. I mean, bring his status to the first team All NBA. Then he and we are ready. I mean, if he's a perennial first team All NBA, I mean, yeah, that definitely is another level, and it'll be hard to argue against him being a number one on the championship team, depending on. Yeah, I think he would have a better argument.
And does he have to be first team? Like you know what I mean? If he's perennial All NBA, I don't care if it's first, second, or third. You know what I mean? That's top 15 at your position at the very right.
I think for something like a champ, being a number one option on a championship team, I think you have to see it. I think it's just something you have to see with your eyes from game to game. I don't think you could just look and say, this guy's a perennial all-star. He's perennial. He can be a number one. I mean, the jury is still out on if AD can be a number one, right? He's a perennial all-star,
Ooh.
perennial all NBA. I'm not saying he can't, but the jury is out for now because he's playing with LeBron and now Russ, right? Um, I'm not saying he can't be.
And
So
that's another thing. Like at this point, do players want even care to be the number one option or on a championship team, or is it really just about a championship team? You
right,
know what I mean?
right. That's true. Being up there, one of the being a significant part of a championship team. Yeah, that's a good point. We're not going to get to all of these questions, but I got to bring up this RJ question. Um, and I believe I meant to write this down. Yeah, I did. Okay. So, and you guys may have seen this on Twitter. So, as per Tommy Beer, RJ Barrett finished the 2020 season averaging 17.6 points, 5.8 rebounds, and 3 assists. Only 4 players in NBA history have matched or exceeded those averages in
At
those
that age.
categories over a full season before turning 21. Magic Johnson, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Zion Williamson. My question is, why do you think he doesn't get the love or the hype other young players do, even though he's putting up these types of numbers, pretty much historical, again, less than 21 years old? Why do you think he doesn't get the hype or the love that other young players in the league who put up similar numbers or even less numbers do?
Style, and it's New York. If RJ Barrett was dunking the ball like Anthony Edwards, who I think is good, I'm not saying Anthony Edwards is trash,
Mhm.
but if he, the style, RJ Barrett, he's a clunky player. The way he drives is sometimes, very robotic. It's not pleasing to the eye. And I was just some other show that doesn't even cover sports, and they were talking about RJ Barrett. These guys from LA, and they were just talking about RJ Barrett, and it's just like, he's cool, but it's just, and they just like, I don't like his game. And these are guys, some of these guys are former ballers, and it's like you watch RJ Barrett,
I
and
seen him.
you could just see them. You could just see other ballers, just like, ugh, I don't really. Yeah, I mean, it don't matter how efficient he is. There's certain players just like they have ugly games, and until they're uber dominant, and they could change the
Right.
paradigm of how people view how a player's supposed to be, he's always going to get that hate. And then obviously New York on top of that, where just
Right.
because it's New York, Terrence Davis made the rookie team over this guy.
Right.
Whatever. So it's just unfortunate RJ Barrett. But you know what? When RJ Barrett doesn't get any accolades, he seems to do better. So just keep dissing him until he's a 20-something point scorer, 50% for the. I just feel like RJ Barrett is like he's like an android. He's like a mutant. He just gets better at his weaknesses. You know what I mean? Like he works very hard. He's the only guy as some of these younger players where these younger players go off in the summer, they do whatever. I'm not saying they work hard, but RJ Barrett literally points out a roadmap to say, I'm gonna get better at this and that because I was not good at this and that. And you see him in the summer working on this and that. So as clunky as he is, I think it'd be perfectly fine. And let the writers or whatever keep hating. Most of these people don't even watch the Knicks like that anyway. So I don't even.
So I agree with Gammo as well, but I think that at that perspective is coming from uh more other basketball players than like the media and things. I think it's more the fact that he's not the number one option. He's not the go-to guy. Because if he was the
Mm.
go-to guy or the number one option, then I think he'd be getting a lot more praise, a lot more accolades. It's almost like he's and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but he's playing behind Randall. You know what I mean? Like they know Randall's the go-to guy. So you know what I mean? Even if he has a good game, they're like, all right, well, next game is we're not gonna get that from him. So I
Right.
think if and all those other guys you named, even Zion and Luca, number one option, but number one option from the jump. You know what I mean? From rookie year on, like
Right.
they came in as the number one guy. Granted, I love the fact that he's not the number one guy. I think he would be better if he was, but I think we'd be worse as a team. So, so you know what I mean? Um, I like the let that natural progression. I know Josh don't like the natural progression thing.
I didn't say a word yet. I didn't say a word yet.
No, I'm talking. I'm referencing the past when I say that. You know, you may have changed your tune, but
I mean, no, I mean, not quite. I mean, listen, Tony, I think you were right. RJ Barrett is not the number one guy. He's not the guy that you're going to give the ball to at the end of the game and say, "Go get me a bucket." Those other players, those other four players or whatever the case may be, I understand the statistics line up, but those guys were generational guys. I mean, it's just plain and simple what it comes down to. I'm not saying whether it's fair. I'm not saying, all of that, because, again, you can make that argument for RJ Barrett. He's putting up the same numbers as these guys, so he has that same kind of trajectory, but he's not a number one guy in my opinion yet. Can he get there? Absolutely. I think he definitely, the potential is definitely there. But last season when RJ Barrett had his bad games, they say, it's because the Knicks have Alfred Payton running it and all that. RJ Barrett can score way more if he has a better point guard and some better scorers around him. The Knicks have that this season. So are those numbers still going to remain the same? And if they don't remain the same, if they go down, then how can you compare him to players who was putting up those same numbers? Right. So again, it just depends on how you look at it. I know we're all homers. We love RJ Barrett. We want to see the best out of our players, particularly our homegrown guys. But all that stuff we need to consider as well. And again, I think I want to see RJ Barrett take that step and become that dude that, go get a bucket. That's just me, my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he's been working. I mean, listen, in order to go get a bucket, I think you got to be able to shoot off the dribble, right? So that's something that he's been working on. I forget the percentage, but a lot of his shots last season was assisted, was off the catch. And listen, I think he probably could have gotten baskets off the dribble, but like I said before, I think Tibbs is controlling in a good way in that sense that you're going to take what you're good at. You're going to practice in the summer. This ain't going to be your practice ground where you're going to be taking shots off the dribble and you're not good at it, right? So I think that limited him even trying it in the game, right? He didn't do it that much, but it's something that he's been working on in the off season. And so let's see, right? In order to go get a bucket, you got to be able to put the ball on the floor, So let's see. And if he's able to do that, I think the Knicks, again, are more dynamic because now down the stretch, it's not just Randle, it's not just Kemba, it's not just Fournier. If RJ finds the ball in his hand with 10 seconds, now he can do something with it, right? So we'll see. But I agree. I think because he's not flashy, I think because he's solid, he's not flashy, is probably why he doesn't get the love. And I agree, he's not the number one option. So that has something to do with it as well. I kind of like Tony said, I like the fact that he's not the number one option. I like the fact that, he's coming along without a lot of pressure, in my opinion, under Randle. And now on this team, even less pressure. I think it was pretty unfair, in my opinion. He was the number 2 by default. And people put a lot of pressure on him. Second-year players are going to be inconsistent. That's just what second-year players do. So, right. Right. So this year, let's see. I know Gmo talked about it on his show. I talked about it on the show. He can be our second best player and average less points. But if he's more efficient, if he's guarding the best wing on the other team game in and game out, he can be our second best player and not even be the second leading scorer on this team. We're gonna need yeah.
Let me add to that. If RJ Barrett is that dude and the Knicks are doing something in the playoffs because of that, that will allow people to change their mindset about him as well. It doesn't have to be about the scoring only.
Right.
It can be that. If that what he's doing contributes to the Knicks going somewhere in the playoffs, I think that would definitely change the perception.
But I think he's trending. But I think he did that already, and I think he's trending in that direction as well. I mean, listen, he's not his defense improved along the way last season as well. I think that's going to get better. Even Tibbs said that's the challenge for him, as well. So I take it that he will be guarding, the best wings on the other team. But listen, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 17, and a half points. Even if the points go down, his rebounds and assists should go up. If he's more efficient, if he's getting us buckets in different ways now,
yes.
Because remember, if he knows how to play, this guy knows how to play. So now if he's taking the ball off the dribble, he gets into the lane. He can score, he can finish, but he can also now pass. It just opens a lot of things up for us. And I think sometimes the stats don't tell the story. So if he can do that for us this year, the Knicks are a totally different team. And that's the role I see for RJ. I know people want him to still be the second leading scorer or the first leading scorer. I don't even care about that. I just need you to be more dynamic with the ball. I need you to play great defense. I need you to be that all-around player, because if you look at a player like Jimmy Butler, he changes everything. He changes everything.
Yep.
And if we can have a mini Jimmy Butler right now,
Mhm.
changes everything for the Knicks. So, I think because, to go back to the question, I think he doesn't have a glamour game. And I think and part of it is the Knicks. People just do not like the Knicks. You gotta be, I don't know what you gotta be to not be in the top 25, to not be in the top. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Steph, because I have to
Go ahead.
leave. I just want to say something
Yeah.
real quick. There's some number one guys who are drafted to be number ones, and they put up points that look like they're number ones, but they're not really number ones.
You're
And
right.
I might get killed,
You're
but
right.
Karl Anthony Towns, great talent.
Right.
I don't think he's a number one. And Sim said I'm happy as a mug. Look, I'm just happy that now I'm on, and because I tell you guys, I see the future. It's just I can't say anything, or you know what I mean. So now that Josh is coming around, and now he's a homer for RJ Barrett, that shows that things could change. So I'm just life is beautiful. But thank you.
Right.
I apologize. I have to leave.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is
no,
an
definitely.
excellent
I
episode.
appreciate your presence.
Thank you. God bless. See you guys, Josh, Tony. See you guys. Take care.
Salute.
Later.
Peace,
All right.
peace.
The last question before we get out of here. I feel like I have a more even perspective. Like these guys who think that he's going into the Hall of Fame, I think it's just too soon. Bring it down, relax. And those players who think that fans who think that because he's not fancy or whatever, that he's not a good player. I disagree with them as well. I think he's on a good developmental track. Just let him develop. But this is my last question, and I don't know if this is controversial or not.
Uh-oh.
But we talked about this a little bit on Tony's show. Check us out. Knicks and Bruises usually comes on before this show, Monday, 6:30. Josh is usually there. I'm usually there. Tony Crow, the host, Knicks and Bruises. We talked about this a little bit. So the question, Kemba is the starter, right? Even Tibbs announced he's the starter. He wants to keep that second unit intact. So my question is, how important is he to the ceiling of the Knicks? And the reason I'm asking this is because everyone is very happy that Kemba is here. The Knicks are going to do this, the Knicks are going to do that. And part of the reason is, a lot of different reasons, but a big part of it is because Kemba is here. But then when you talk about the injuries, now people want to downplay. So we're going to be a great team because Kemba is here. But if he gets injured, we're still going to be a great team because we got enough behind him. And I kind of see it like, yeah, we're going to reach our ceiling and we're going to be a very good team if he's healthy. But if he's not, I don't know if I don't believe that our ceiling is going to be as high. I do think that if he's injured, and I'm talking about like 25 games or something, I'm not talking about a game here and there, our ceiling is not as high. So the question to you two is, how important is he to the Knicks reaching our ceiling? Or do you think that he's not that important? We'll still be able to reach our ceiling with or without him because we have enough.
Tell him, let me get it first. Okay. When we first signed Kemba Walker, I thought that pretty much saved the Knicks free agency, right? Because before that, they didn't have a starting point guard. Now you can argue they bought Derrick Rose to be back they bought Derrick Rose back to be the starting point guard. That's not what they did at all. Okay, they needed another point guard. They had all the money, and they pretty much lucked out with the Kemba Walker signing. But that's a different thing. People label the Kemba Walker signing low risk, high reward. For the contract and the amount of money we paid him, it is low risk, high reward. But to the importance to this team, it is extremely high risk, absolutely a high risk. Without Kemba Walker, the Knicks are basically pretty much in a similar position to where they were going into the playoffs last season, or after game 2 or whatever the case may be against Atlanta. They didn't have a starting point guard. They had to throw Derrick Rose out there, and there was no other person, sufficient enough to be able to hold it down off the bench. There was nobody else there. Quickly didn't step up to the plate. I know he was a rookie. Right now we got Miles McBride coming into that role, to play some of those hits. So again, Kemba Walker is his health is probably the most important thing to this team as far as maintaining or taking that next step in their progression in the playoffs. No question about it. He has to be healthy.
Josh. I mean, not Josh, Tone.
I know you agree more with Fulio than me, but so I ain't gonna lie. Before we signed Kemba, I definitely wasn't very excited coming into the new season, not knowing where that position was gonna get filled from. I didn't want Derrick Rose necessarily starting. I love what he did coming off the bench, and I think maybe that even that little change of starting him in the playoffs might have, like, if we would have went in any other direction, that might have gave us another win. You know what I mean? We might have seen some more things and some more options, but it was like 35 minutes. We can't rely on that from Rose. All that being said, I want Kemba at his best, but I still think we can be like, I don't think it's gonna be like an end of our playoff run or end of our playoff hopes if he has to miss 20 games or so. I don't want to put numbers out there because I don't want to jinx anything. But I think what we saw from Quickly, what they obviously had him working on throughout the summer, is being able to play that position. So I think that's an option. I don't want to put anything on a rookie as far as him stepping up. So let me just focus on Quickly stepping up. What would have to happen though is Knox would have to fill a role. He would have to be a vital part to be able to step up where Quickly can play some, maybe the starting role, and then the rest of the rotation can fill out. Or a Grimes, obviously, or McBride. Somebody else obviously is going to have to step up, but it doesn't necessarily have to be all from the point guard position is what I'm saying.
Right.
We've seen enough of other people playing that position for us last year from guys that are still here that I think we could still maintain if we lose, one or the other.
When you say maintain, you mean as long as they're available for the playoffs and healthy in the playoffs? Yes, you talk about during the regular season.
Yes. I mean, and God forbid, even if it's not, you never know. Because, I mean, granted, we didn't win a playoff series, but look at how much Noel stepped up in Mitch's absence. I don't think anybody projected that. You know what I mean? So I think somebody...
We didn't, but Mitch would have been better.
No, absolutely. But I'm saying someone could step up in the absence of a Kemba Walker or in the absence of a Derrick Rose. Right. I think that's just the way our team is built this year. Not relying on these guys, but I think we have a few guys and they all can play multiple positions that we're able to hold the fort down, if you will, if we lose somebody. So and I think it's at more than just the point guard position. I think the hardest thing is the small forward.
I just want to respond very, very quickly. I know, listen, we love McBride, and we are anxious to see McBride play and all this. But right now, Miles McBride is an unknown. He is an unknown. We've seen what he did in college, but we don't know how all that's going to translate into the NBA. He hasn't even played one game yet, right? It's easy to say that the Knicks are very, very deep right now, right? That they have guys who can step in and fill that role. Last season, and people are going to kill me for this, last season, once we stopped playing Elfrid Payton, we had Frank Ntilikina there to play that role. Obviously, Tibbs didn't want to go with him. The previous season before that, Frank Ntilikina started, 30-something games? So he was capable of playing the starting point guard position. We just did not use him. So again, just because we have these players that can play, you know what I mean? It all comes down to how the Knicks perform in the playoffs and how those players are able to take their games to the next level to take the team to the next level. Last season, we had players that can fill the role, but they weren't able to. For one reason or another, they couldn't play, or Tibbs didn't want them to play, or something like that. So we still have to see what is there with McBride. If Kemba Walker, knock on wood, God forbid, is hurt or whatever the case may be, and Miles McBride decides to step up, and we see that, no problem. This is not even a conversation. The Knicks are going to be who they are, right? But if Kemba Walker, if that does happen to Kemba Walker, and then we still have these players here, and they haven't hit their stride yet or taken that next step, then what are we talking about? You don't think that's the same thing as last season?
But Josh, he like a McBride wouldn't necessarily have to step up all the way up to the starting role. All he has to do is step up a level. You know what I mean? If everybody is stepping up one step, he's only got to step up one step. You know what I mean? If Quickly's making a jump from bench to starter, then McBride is only making a step from rotational to bench. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the way. That's the way I'm looking at it. And I wasn't necessarily. I was trying to leave McBride out of it because we had multiple options that we did use, and we could also maybe in hindsight say not using Frank when pulling Peyton might have been a mistake. You know what I mean? Like we kind of put him in for a possession where it's like, all right, stop this guy now for the game.
Right.
Like that's how we use them. So
yeah, I think what I'm trying to say is I think for a game, yes. And I agree with what you're saying, Tony. So you're saying that, McBride or Quick, if they come in, they don't have to do what Kemba does. They just, play a little bit better, and then maybe RJ will pick up some of that slack. Maybe Randle will pick up some of that slack. And I agree. But I'm talking about, for me, if we're talking about a 50-win season for the Knicks, if we're talking about the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference, if we're talking about making it to the semifinals or the Eastern Conference Finals, there is
that
no
changes.
way
That obviously changes.
happens without Kemba Walker. Now, and that's what I mean in terms of our ceiling. I'm talking about as how far can we go? Now, there's 2 parts to it. If he's injured during the regular season, and instead of us being the 4th seed, we're the 6th seed, but come playoffs, he's healthy, it's a new ball game, right? We may not have home court advantage, but if we're healthy, our chances, our chances are good. I just think that it's a double-edged sword where people are saying, we're going to win 50 games because of Kemba, what he brings to the team. But if he gets injured, we're still going to be okay. No, I just don't think we are. And again, it depends on how many games we're talking about. But McBride, especially if we're talking about the playoffs, as we saw last year, the playoffs is a different animal. And what I'm liking about this team is that we have players who played there before. Right, Randle, it'll be his 2nd year. Kemba has played in the playoffs. Fournier has played in the playoffs. Rose has played. Because if you notice, those guys who played
the rookies,
right, right. Those guys who played in the playoffs were the ones who played well for us, Rose and Taj. Right, because they know what it takes. So to me, I'm not that comfortable with McBride in a playoff game because even if he plays well in the regular season, who knows what's going to happen, right? So I guess my point is I disagree with a lot of the fans who say we're going to be okay if Kemba misses a lot of games in the regular season or if he misses games in the playoffs. We have enough. I disagree because I think it's more than just having somebody that's in that position. You got to have somebody that can play that position and also that makes your team more dynamic. You take a Kemba out, you're losing some of the dynamics of your offense. It changes things, right? Even if you put somebody like Burke ain't Kemba. You know what I mean? So I'm not wishing. I have the Knicks. I'm very high on the Knicks if they're healthy. But I think that ceiling really depends on Kemba being available, especially in the playoffs. So fine.
So is it to the point where you don't think we could win a series without Kemba? If he's out
right now, as of right now, absolutely. As of right now, absolutely.
You saying absolutely not?
Depends on
absolutely not. Well, obviously, yeah, it does depend on who we
Depends
play.
on who
Well,
who it depends on who we playing. But look how tough this. I mean, I'm saying you can't have it both ways. He's important to the team or he's not. Like, oh, he's so important. We're gonna win 50 games, but if he's not playing, we're gonna be good.
See,
No, we're not.
I don't believe that, but I also don't think he's like the savior. You know what I mean? Like, because that's why I think losing him. I think there's a number of guys that we could lose that it's the same type of impact. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean? We really can't afford like Mitch. I think he's a vital part to us losing the playoff series last year, not having him. So if we don't have him again, I think it's gonna still be just as difficult. And
But we
then
don't have we don't have other, like, at least you can have like, we don't even have anything close to Kemba, in my opinion, in terms of how dynamic he can be when he's when he's healthy.
but we
and
can make
and,
that
and,
same
and Tone,
argument about Mitch, right?
I
Because
think I think
we don't know
I,
what we have in Sims
we don't.
and
right.
Noel, as great as he is, he doesn't have the same dynamic as Mitch. He does, you know what I mean? He does some of the same
But
things.
it's not a huge drop off.
Right, exactly.
It's
Even
not
though
a
Mitchell
huge
Robinson,
drop off.
is offensively, even though he's offensive limited, he can still get through the vertical game and all that stuff.
Right.
But he is still offensive limited, right? So the drop off offensively between him and Noel is it's not too crazy. But when you talk about Kemba Walker, think about it this way: Derrick Rose is a clear upgrade over Elfrid Payton last season. The Knicks started him, and offense got worse. It got worse. So again,
we lost our bench dynamic. That's why.
But that's my point, though, and that's what I'm saying. When you lose Kemba Walker, you know what I'm saying? You got to find someone to put in that starting role. And if it ain't gonna be Derrick Rose, if you're gonna have him come off the bench, who is gonna be that guy in the starting role? We don't know right now. It's hard to say who that is. We have to see during the regular season, see if Quickly took his game to the next level, if he can be able to fill that spot, or if not, Miles McBride. But we don't really know.
Well, ultimately, in the playoff series, I think it's ultimately is going to depend on who we're playing. You know what I mean? Like if we're talking Atlanta, I think we win with Mitch.
Without Kemba?
I'm talking about last year. So yeah.
Oh. But
So
I'm
you think,
saying,
you
but
think
you're
we beat
saying
Atlanta
this
with
year,
Mitchell
though.
Robinson?
Yes. I think Cabela is not allowed to do the things that he was doing as far
But
as
it wasn't Clint Capella hurt us too, but it was Trey Young. I don't know.
Trae Young. It was the point
it
guard.
was, but who was his main weapon? Who was the guy that was stopping Randle on like he was the help guy every time? And if it wasn't him, it was
But he can still help
Tom,
because RJ, I mean, Mitch is not like an offensive threat.
Tone, you looking at what Atlanta did to us defensively. You bring up Clint Capella and his ability to stop Julius Randle. The Knicks were already limited offensively. I'm talking about what we didn't do defensively, which was our bread and butter. And I understand that Mitchell Robinson could be able to help that, but Trae Young was just so dynamic, getting into the paint, running the pick and roll, in transition, getting the ball out the Hurd, getting the ball out the Gallo, that they tore us apart. I don't think having Mitchell Robinson there would have been that drastic would have been that drastic of a difference to make that shit. We didn't show up, period. I don't think having Mitchell Robinson there, makes us show up.
I still think we lose the series. Maybe we have a better showing. But I still think we lose the series. But to get back to your point, Tone, I was just talking about the regular season, but you brought up an even bigger point, a bigger controversial point, that even without Kemba, you think we can win a playoff series?
Depending on the matchup, I do.
Wow.
Depending on the matchup,
so then I don't get the fans hype. Everybody hyped about Kemba, but we can win without him. I don't know. I just feel like we need him. If we're gonna play with the big dogs and advance in the playoffs, I just can't see us doing it without this guy, because we just don't have a lot of proven guys on this team. And listen, Josh is right. Maybe IQ surprises us. Maybe McBride surprises us in the playoffs, because the playoffs is different. But the oh man, I don't know.
And like you said, Queen, this whole team has had experience now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
I mean, not for nothing. It's very rare that you see a guy that has the MO that he just can't perform in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like when you hear it, it's a big deal. That's why they make such a big deal out of it. Because guys don't have consecutive bad playoff. You know what I mean? Like
Are you
performances
talking about
like that.
Randall?
I'm talking about the team, kind of. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't just Randall. Like the whole
Right.
team kind of bombed, except for Taj,
Right.
Rose, and you could argue that Obi broke out. I mean, he really didn't. He played better, but he
Right.
didn't.
He
He
played
didn't
better.
break out. You know what I mean? So the guys who've been there before are the ones that actually came to play. Like
Right.
everybody else,
Right.
it
Right.
was
Right.
their first time.
Right.
So I just don't see that happening twice in a row from everybody.
No, it's not. It's not that. And Sherwin M is like mad down on the Knicks. This team is a play-in team at best.
Mm.
Relax, Sherman. I appreciate you. I appreciate your support, but a play-in now. If a lot of players get hurt, yeah, I can see that. But if healthy, nah, 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 nah. Um, anything else on that topic or anything else we discussed before we get out of here?
So I got a question though. I mean,
Yeah.
so Randall, I mean, you would put Walker as a most important or second most important piece at this point? Like,
I think as far that because we talk all the time about the Knicks not having a point guard, and that being the biggest issue with our offense for years,
years.
right? Right. And now that we have one, a guy who we know can do it, right? But the only question is injury. I think that is to me the biggest thing how this team will advance. Like, yes, I know Randall has to show up, right? But I'm expecting Randall to show up, right? I agree with you. I don't
Right.
think it's going to happen 2 years in a row. I'm expecting RJ to take that next step a little bit, right? And show up in some playoff games. But Kemba Walker, if the Knicks have a dynamic ball handler, point guard who can be able to get to his spots and open things up for the rest of the offense is gazillion times better. Especially in the plus Kemba's been there in the playoffs, Tone. You know it. You argued me about it, remember? So if we
Right.
have that guy in the playoffs consistently and in the playoffs, I think that gives
Right.
us to the next, like, you know,
Right. I mean,
can
and you can
I think a
argue.
better question should have been like, what is our ceiling if he gets hurt? You know what I mean? Because you
What
know
if
what I
I
mean? Like,
seal it if he gets hurt? I would say if we win the first round, it's a 7-game series. I just think he's that. I just think he's that important. It depends on who we playing though. Um, but I just think our ceiling is definitely less without him. And look at Boston. Boston. You can argue if Kemba was healthy, they would have done better. He's an integral part of the team. I mean, we are a deep team, but we're not a deep playoff ready team. We're not a deep team with people who've proven in the playoffs. So you take that away. Now is
that's a fact.
Randall still a question mark, but I agree. I think he'll play better the second time around. Fournier, Todd, that playoff pedigree. If you take Kemba out, it's kind of.
So can I
I
ask you
would
this?
say
Because I know Josh's answer. Are you more inclined for us making a move, or are you okay with the team as is and going forward the next 2 years? Are you okay if we didn't make a move in the next 2 years? Because
No,
right now everybody's locked up for relatively 2 years,
I would
and
not be.
and no, even if everybody progresses, I'm
Yeah,
not putting
I mean, in
a
order for me to
projection
be.
on how far they
Yeah,
go,
yeah, yeah.
but you
In
know what I
order
mean.
for
But
me to be content with this team for the next 2 years, Kemba would have to revert to Charlotte's Kemba with no injury histories, and in that case, he's a number one or number two. If he's Charlotte Kemba, I don't think that's going to happen because of the chronic knee issues, and RJ would have to like pop squared. I mean, he would have to like be like really take off for me to feel comfortable with this team for the next 2 years.
All right, let me answer because you asked two questions. And I didn't get a chance to answer at least the first one. So for the first question, I think healthy Kemba, right? Everything works out with Kemba. His knees all good to go. You know what I'm saying? I think the Knicks ceiling with that is either a fourth or fifth seed, just like the season. And I think we can get past the first round and get into the second round. Right. I think that's the ceiling for this team if everything goes right with Kemba. Without Kemba, I think we are a playing team. I think we can still compete in the first round series, but I think it'll be more the same like last season because we didn't have a point guard, a guy who can handle the ball and facilitate at the point guard position. That's just my opinion about the Knicks. Kemba Walker is that important. As far as your second question, I'm always looking to improve. Always. You never stop improving. The Brooklyn Nets are still bringing players in. The Lakers are still bringing players in. Like, you have to keep improving. Like, nothing is ever set in stone. So I think, Leon Rose and Scott Perry are thinking about this as well. They're going to evaluate the team halfway through the season. And if there's a move to be made, they're absolutely going to do it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
the contracts are flexible.
I agree. I'm just saying sometimes those trades aren't available. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or sometimes you don't like what you have to. You know what I mean? You don't like the exchange. So I'm not saying pass on everything, but if so happens that we they don't like what's out there or they don't like the cost of it.
Right. Yeah, if we have to stand pat, I'm good. I will say I think our ceiling is higher. I think is higher than fourth or fifth if everybody is healthy. I think our ceiling is higher. I know, Josh, you're very high on Miami, but if you look at that second team, their bench, I don't think is I just don't think it's that great. I think they remind me of us last year. Extremely good defensively, but offensively, are they going to be able to put up the points, the points necessary? So I think if we're healthy, yeah.
My quick retort to the Miami thing is, I think in the regular season, that bench stuff, I don't think it'll matter as much as come playoff time. So I think as far as the seeding is concerned, again, I think Miami, because they had that star lineup that they have and those guys that they put out there on the floor, I think they're going to be higher than us in the seeding. Come playoff time, is going to hurt them for sure. No question.
How far, Steph? How far do you think we could get with Charlotte Kemba? Not
with Charlotte. With Charlotte Kemba, we are different.
Round. So
no. With Charlotte Kemba,
he said past first round,
second round.
So where's your ceiling on that?
Listen, do y'all remember Charlotte Kemba?
Yeah.
Do y'all remember Charlotte Kemba? Charlotte Kemba, you got a shot to go to the Eastern Conference Final with Charlotte Kemba.
All right.
That means Randle's still playing the way he played last year. You can argue. Remember, we said that he needs somebody else to play with him that's either just as good or better. You can argue that Kemba would be that guy if we're talking about Charlotte, Kemba.
No question.
Yeah, Philly is a mess. Now, I hope they stay a mess because if they do trade Simmons, they're going to get somebody good in return. Right? They're not going to get a bag of peanuts. They're going to get somebody really good in return. But Charlotte Kemba, I wouldn't be surprised if we went to the Eastern Conference Finals. And if we did lose in that second round, we're talking about 7 games.
Right. And that's the part right there that I wanted to get at because you mentioned Philadelphia, right? Philadelphia was good enough to get to the Eastern Conference Finals these past 4 years. They were good enough, but a couple times they lost in game 7s, last season with Atlanta and then the season where Kawhi Leonard hit the shot.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. So at least if the Knicks are competitive to that nature where they're competitive enough to get to a Final Four, then, and that's the same thing I'm saying, Queen. I'm just not saying it in the same way. Right. You know what I mean? So I think a healthy Kemba can get us to that point. No question.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I think that even if he doesn't, I don't know if it's the plan though. Even if I think even without Kemba, you don't think we can get the 8th seed? Like if he didn't play at all, you don't think we can get the 8th seed in the conference? Like you think we would go all the way down to the play-in?
8th seed is the plan.
It's still
8th seed is the plan. That's true. Okay. Yeah. Got you. I get it. Yeah. I would agree with that then, that we wouldn't be in the top 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
I'm thinking 9, 10. You're right. All right. Any last words? Shout out to the chat. Very very active today. We all excited.
Season time.
Yeah, about the Knicks. Somebody asked who is starting tomorrow. I think it's going to be the starting lineup for the regular season. Kemba, RJ, Fournier, Noel, and Randall. Any difference? You guys think is going to be a different starting lineup tomorrow?
Unless something happened in practice that we don't know about, someone's dealing with a finger injury or a turf toe. No, it's going to be that lineup out there.
Yeah. But I don't think they get more than 20, 25 minutes. Those starters.
Yeah. And I don't know if we're doing a pregame tomorrow. Probably not. We got to do like MSG, the pregame. That's how they get ready too with the with the preseason game. But anyway, I appreciate you, Josh. I appreciate you, Tony, Gmo, coming, hanging out with me. Any females, any women that want to be on the show, hit me in the DM. BK Steph 33 at BK Steph 33. Oh, Sim said he is doing a pregame for sure. I'm telling you, the entire season is going to be covered right here. Pre-game, post-game, the morning shoot around the next day, Queens Court, Knicks and Bruises, any controversies throughout the season, and there will be plenty. I'm telling you now, there will be plenty. We got you covered. And there was one other family, MBK, friends of the show that I forgot to shout out, and that's Cornerstone Kev. Hope you're doing well, Cornerstone, and G-Man, who do the part couple on Blanche Tears, haven't already. Yeah. Knicks Real Talk as well. If you haven't already, definitely check them out. And Kevin, we wish you the best. Love, my brother.
Steph, real quick. Also, tomorrow, prior to the pregame, we're doing the interview with Miles McBride's high school coach, guys. High school coach tomorrow should be around 4:30 time frame. So tune in for that. It's going to be dope. You know what I'm saying? We're going to ask him some questions the same way we did the main quickly high school coach, guys. So tune in. It's going to be. We got a lot of good stuff. We got a lot of good stuff coming for y'all.
Sure. Definitely. And with that, we out. Appreciate you, family. Be easy until we meet again. Appreciate y'all.